Hey guys, welcome back, and we have another week of box office. Let's get into it. Make sure to like, sub, comment, and follow me on Insta. Up first, we have & Juliet. 86% last week and 713K, 80% this week and 700K. Obviously, this has been doing very poorly since August. In the last 3 months, I think it's only made money 2 or 3 weeks. But the point is that I do think that 2026 could be its last year. Obviously, it's recouped its investment. It's done very well up until 2025, this being its worst performing year. And again, I think it takes a while for a show that's doing extremely well to start to patter out and then eventually close. We don't know how deep the pockets are of the producers, but I wouldn't 100% count on it being here this time next year. It could be, but honestly, it's consistently doing low 700s, 600K. It's not even hit 1 million in months. It's just not a great look. Beetlejuice, 82% and 950K to 82% and 969K. Vista Social Club, 96% and 1,054,939 last week, and 93% and 993K. Chess, 99% last week and 1.7 million, and this week 96% and $2 million at the box office, despite the mixed reviews. I don't think they've announced an extension, but they'd be crazy not to. At least go until the end of the summer, because they make lots of money. But again, the question becomes, is it worth it to potentially risk millions of dollars by having replacements that aren't going to bring in the box office? Because Lea Michele and Aaron Tveit are bringing in box office, but I do think that a good half of it is because Chess is a beloved cult musical, kind of in the same vein that Merrily was in. You know, Merrily, I think without Daniel Radcliffe, probably wouldn't have done more than 1.1 or 2 million a week, but still amazing numbers. But it seems like the music might be the de facto thing that makes people come and see it. Death Becomes Her had one of its lowest weeks, surprisingly, out of nowhere. 93% last week and 1,286,969 to 86% and 1,104,808. Hadestown, 96% last week and 799K to 95% and 821K. Harry Potter continues to sell out, and 2.9 million this week, close to $3 million. Many were thinking that maybe Tom Felton, him being in Harry Potter, might, you know, in that first week might have been a bit of a blip, kind of. And not in the sense that it would fall to like $1 million, but the fact that it maybe wouldn't go to 2.9 million. But again, Tom Felton, the original Harry Potter cast, are very valuable, and people will pay crazy amounts of money to see them, as by the ticket prices. And I even saw that Rupert Grint, who played Ron, isn't completely against coming back. So if they could get the original trio to come back, this thing would go, like, all the records would be broken. All of the records. This would make like 5 million, 6 million. The average ticket would be like $2,000. Hell's Kitchen, 74% last week and 720K to 81% and 991K. And they did announce some major stunt casting. And it just goes to show that when a show is doing this, it's struggling. And Hell's Kitchen shouldn't be having to do this not even 2 years in. We saw the massive decrease from summer of 24 to summer of 25. Without the stunt casting, I think this thing might have been out the door, or would have been close to closing. So we'll see how good the stunt casting goes. I know Alicia Keys performed the last performance or so of last week, so that increased box office, but it isn't a sustainable or good sign of a healthy box office when the only thing that gets you a 270K increase is when Alicia Keys sings, not even during the show, but at the end of the show. So will this be here a year from now? It might be, but I think we'll have to see how the stunt casting goes. and maybe this will give it that Hadestown effect that it needs. Though I know a lot of the stunt casting that they've announced are only in it for the next couple of months, so that's December, November, and January. So I think that the big test will be, can they continue to get stunt casting? Time sells out in 1.4 million to 1.3 million. Maybe Happy Ending had one of its worst weeks ever, worst weeks in a while, besides when Andrew left. 95% and 1,218,382 to 93% and 1,144,498. The fact that Darren is in this and it's doing this poor is kind of surprising. Again, it's still making money. It's still fine. It's gonna be here this time next year, probably the year after that. But I think what we are seeing is what I predicted with The Outsiders, and that these best musical winners, even if they're based off of an IP, and just new musicals in general, have a shorter lifespan when it comes to the big bucks. And that's a major issue, because you could rely on a show making 1.4, 1.5 for like a year and a half, maybe 2, before pattering off. You know, compared to Hadestown or The Outsiders, maybe Happy Endings, November pales in comparison, and it just goes to show why people are not investing in new musicals, why there's such a lack of new musicals this season, and ultimately how the business model has evolved, and not in a way that is good for new musicals, which is why we're seeing so many new revivals this season than musicals, because they want stuff that people are going to see, like, without question. Maybe Happy Ending has like a weekly operating cost of around 790K, so even if it had an 8 in front of it, it would be fine. But it is a little concerning that even with Darren in November, it's doing 1.1 mil. Like, that's not a good sign, and that's not what you want to see when your big star came back and as you get into the holiday season. So it's very not surprising as much, because I think I have adjusted the expectation, and knowing that this kind of is almost following a pattern that's not good, but it's the new pattern. Moulin Rouge, 91% and 922K to 93% and 1,096,627. Mincemeat, 85% and 646K to 79% and 600K, and that's extended a couple weeks into April. I would have closed it in February. I don't think its box office is good enough to justify an extension, but they're doing it. Ragtime continues to be such a hit. Sells out, 1,286,000, 176 last week, 1,321,952 this week. And I wonder how long they can keep up the 1.1 to 1.3 area. If they can keep that up from now until the Tonys, that would be such a breath of relief and such an affirmation that musical theater is still alive. Although again, it's a revival of a beloved musical, so already you're gonna have people willing to see it, and with the Lincoln Center Theater, the audience is gonna be more, I think, receptive to this than, say, if, like, I don't know, Teeth was at Lincoln Center. So again, very interesting to see that it's consistently managing to do good for the last almost month that it's been here, and that's very good signs for the revival and an affirmation of their extension. 6, 71% last week and 579K, 74% this week and 663K. Again, it's had its worst year yet, but it did so well in the beginning of the year that I think it's going to take... I do think it will close in 2026, even though it's takes a while for shows, especially like 6, which isn't even as big as something like a Gatsby or whatever, to really feel the effects. I mean, it's feeling the effects of it, but not to the sense where, oh my god, we're gonna close next month. But they're definitely, the producers would be justified in closing 6. And again, I think it's waning audience interest. And we're gonna talk about this when we get to Queen of Versailles, but clearly the audience isn't there anymore, and when the audience isn't there anymore and they're consistently telling you that, unless you have a stunt casting, things are only going to get worse. Stranger Things, 76% and 935K to 78% and 983K. Again, when is this closing? It's doing so poorly, although again, it's doing better. But the fact that 983k is good for Stranger Things is insane. Gatsby with Jeremy Jordan is doing much better, 92% and 1,185,149 to 83% and 995k. The Outsiders, 95% last week and 1,054,000 to 93% and 1,204,000. Again, much weaker numbers, but we've gone over that. Two Strangers, 90% and 616k to 82% and 546k. Again, not an amazing week for Two Strangers, but again, as long as it has a 4 or 5 in front of it, it's fine, even though it would be losing money. And we prefer 580 to 600k, it's fine. And then the big news is that the Queen of Versailles is closing on January 4th. Can you believe it? Well, the producers explained that they are closing this because they know they're gonna lose money. And I could have told you that. If you've been following the channel, you could have told them that, because this was gonna be the next Idina Menzel original musical from last season, where it got mixed reviews. It started off well, but then by the end, it was dying a slow death, and they closed early. Because while it has made $1 million at the box office, and it actually financially has done quite well for an original musical, especially with how poor word of mouth is and critic reviews are, again, I think they saw the writing on the wall. And I think that the more producers should do a Queen of Versailles and close early, because so many musicals go on past their sell date and lose more money. And then the next week, 800k, 900k, it fell down a little again, fell down a little bit the next week. Then it did 1,065,000, 1,035,000. So it was actually on a pretty good track. But their advance sales must have been really, really, really bad if they're closing. So again, last week, 90% and 1,065,302. This week, 86% and 877k. And when you have a massive decrease like that, especially with the critic reviews, it's a bad sign. So I respect them for doing this. If this had gotten amazing reviews and good word of mouth, it wouldn't be closing. Because financially, it actually was doing good. Even this week at 877k, they might have made a little bit of money. I don't think this is like a 900k a week show. It might be. I'm thinking this is more like 880, 850k a week type thing. So it wasn't, but I know that it was a very expensive musical. Wow, Michael Arden's downfall needs to be studied. And this had a lot of controversy. Kristen Chenoweth had the whole Kristen Chenoweth did the whole, said the thing about the guy that, yeah, I don't want to get demonetized. And then there was them working with William Ivy Long, I think, who was accused of sexual assault. And then there was, the subject matter. And people might be thinking that that is why the show closed. Could have been a small little factor, probably. But ultimately, it's closing because it's a bad show. So those are my thoughts for this week. A very exciting week. Some closings, some new developments, some old developments. Like, sub, comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.